All right. Well, let's move to January 6th and what eventually caused you to blow the whistle.
Well, I moved from my division in the Midwest to Daytona Beach in 2021 in the summer. So this was multiple months after January 6th. I had no involvement with any of those cases. And I was transferred with the understanding I was going to work on child pornography. But as we came up against the end of the fiscal year, which we just went here with the budget, the FBI has to do a budget as well every year, and they decided to reallocate their manpower more towards domestic terrorism because that's where all the funding is going, that's where all the political attention is. And I was told that I needed to put all my child pornography work aside, no longer work on it. It was no longer a priority, and work on domestic terrorism. And in my office, that was almost entirely January 6th. So those cases at that point were 9 months old because it was in October and had been worked in our office. There weren't any new cases coming through, but I was very familiar with the way to carry out criminal investigations in the FBI after at that point it had been over 7 years of investigating. I'd opened over 200 cases. I arrested 150 violent criminals. So I was very familiar with the FBI's rule book. And when I got my first look at the January 6 cases, it was immediately apparent to me that the FBI is departing from its rules that guide how it's supposed to run cases. And the only plausible explanation for that is they're juking the stats on domestic terrorism to make it appear that domestic terrorism is far worse in this country than it actually is.
I just got to pause because the irony, the unmitigated gall of taking you off of child pornography, human trafficking, to put you onto domestic terrorism is just indicative of these rogue agencies, bureaucracies, just moving into unconstitutional, just horrible places that need to be reined in, and it's desperate that they be reined in. And well, I'm sorry, I love what you're saying, and I want you to continue, but I got to just pause at certain sections of the story to just say we have to do something. We, but go ahead. Tell me more about the what they did to juke the stats to inflate domestic terrorists.
Well, the way you would typically run a case in the FBI, and January 6th is one case, it was one incident in one location on one day, and you would open one case, and there would be however many subjects who allegedly committed crimes who would be investigated at that point. But instead, the FBI elected to open a separate case for every single person who was supposed to be a subject that day. So now we've taken one case and turned it into thousands of cases. And then, as opposed to running the case officially from Washington, D.C., where the incident happened, they said that wherever the person lived, that office would have responsibility for investigating that case. Now, that creates the illusion of thousands of cases spread around the country when it's really not true. It's a one-time incident. It is very unusual, but it is allowable. The major departure, which is actually a violation of the FBI's procedures, is that there is still a task force that exists in Washington, D.C. that is running these cases and basically giving directives to the field on how to run their own cases. So wherever you stand on January 6th, you might think that it's the worst insurrection since the Civil War. You might think it was a guided tour through the Capitol building. You might fall somewhere in between. But the fact that the FBI is giving directives to agents jeopardizes those cases because it's operating outside of its policy. And I brought that concern forward because I said, look, I've been to trial. Unlike most agents, I've actually been to trial 8 times in my career. I know there's a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of red tape that you have to do. And we are not documenting why we're doing it this way. And when I asked why we're doing it this way, I was told it's to get buy-in from the field. Buy-in meaning, who knows? It could mean that you don't think anybody's going to work hard unless you tell them that their name is on it. Or more likely, it's tied to, and we can get into this, it's tied to what is called integrated program management, IPM, and that is the FBI's little-known quota system that it operates under for its cases and productivity that it then goes to Congress to justify its funding.